You have a real condition and still get denied because the VA runs on evidence, not common sense. So in this video, we're going to talk about a few things. One we're going to talk about is why evidence is everything. The VA decision-making process. So what happens when you file a completed claim, which means you have a current diagnosis, you have medical evidence, you have lay statements, you have all these things, you submit all your paperwork to the VA. What is the process? Well, the VA is going to take this paperwork, they're going to take this, they're going to combine it. They're going to combine it with your records, okay? And then they're going to say, oh, okay, yes, this looks like a fully qualified claim, which means you're not missing anything. And let's move forward and let's see what's going on with this veteran. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to reach out to one of their contracted hospitals or clinics, and they're going to set up what's called the CMP, which is Compensation and Pension Exam. So when you go to this CMP, there's going to be a doctor or whoever, a specialist that's going to sit down with you, and they're going to go over all of your issues pertaining to your claim. They're going to have in front of them a piece of paper or multiple pieces of paper called DBQs, which stands for Disability-Based Questionnaire. You can Google that. You can see exactly what questions will be asked pertaining to your condition. And I suggest you do so you can familiarize yourself with that. And based on how the doctor fills out this DBQ, they're going to answer questions, how severe is the pain? What's the movement of the joint? How often does he have headaches? How badly is his hearing, or how poorly does he hear? All of these things get documented in this DBQ. And then that guy, that consultant for the VA, is going to submit that to the VA. Now the VA's got your medical records, they've got your claim information, they've got the DBQ, and they're going to present that to a rater. Now, the way it works is you're in a queue, so you're in a line, right? And everybody's filing, so your package is going to be in line. So it's been moving really fast lately, but when I did all of my claims, it was a pretty slow process. I think the longest I waited was almost 7 months from the start to finish of a claim. They're moving much quicker now. But again, it's still a process. It's not fast. It's government, so it's a lot of people who have to look at this, especially if it's a more significant claim where it's 50% disability or higher. Then the more eyes get put on this thing. But anyway, so it gets into this queue, right? And then we'll call it the national queue. And then from there, a regional VA rater will pull from this queue, right? So just because you live, for example, I live in Florida, my regional VA office is in St. Petersburg, Florida. My claim could be viewed and settled by Winston-Salem, for example. It's just wherever, as these regional offices pull these claims and start working through these claims, it's like, again, they just pull from the national queue, and that's how it works. And then once the rater goes through the claim, goes through all this information, so your current diagnosis, your claim information, your medical records, your service records, all of this information that's presented to him, the DBQs from your CMP exam, all of this together, then he's going to determine what your rating should be. It's very straightforward. The VA has criteria. To get 10%, they must meet this criteria. To get 30% this, 50% this, 70% this, 100% this. So all of these things, they're not difficult to come by. You can Google them. You can look them up. I feel like I'm putting a lot on you to do. I'm just telling you that there's companies out there that people pay a lot of money to that will do this for you, and it's just like paying somebody to Google. You don't need to do that. You earned this money. It was your blood, sweat, and tears that got you to this point. Unfortunately, it's a disability, but it's yours. And that money is yours. You don't need to pay someone like me just because I'm trying to help you get your money. No, that bothers me. It really bothers me. Please don't do that. This is easy. But anyway, so that's basically how the VA comes to the decision. And then once they come to the decision, they're going to award you or deny you, and then we'll determine what path to take after that, right? If they award you, it goes back to the intent to file date. The first month after, that's when your pay will kick off. They will back pay you if it's a significant amount of time. And then from that point on, the first of the month, every month, you're going to get your stipend. You're going to get your compensation. So I'm going to go over this one more time, but every claim needs three things. Three things for every single claim. A current diagnosis, a current diagnosis, an in-service event or exposure, and then a nexus, a medical link that ties your time in service with the condition you have today. That's what every claim has to have, right? The VA expects a burden of proof, right? How can I prove that the condition I have today occurred when I was in the military, the connection, right? So there's ways of going about that. And I'm not opposed to that. There are companies out there that will, and you again, hate to say it, but you're going to be the master of Google. There are companies out there that you can pay that will go through your medical records and write what they call a nexus letter. So there are some claims where I used a nexus letter. There are other claims where I did not use a nexus letter. So if let's say you have a copy, and I hope you have a copy of your medical records when you were in service. But if you were seen for that bad shoulder when you were in the military, you don't need to provide the VA with a nexus letter. And I say that because it's in your records. Your condition of your shoulder was documented in your records. The VA will see that. A nexus letter that you would pay for, let's say you were never seen for PTSD. So you paid a psychiatrist to do an evaluation on you, and he determined that yes, because of some event, you now suffer from PTSD. And I'll tell you this, as a veteran, we all in some way, shape, or form suffer from PTSD. If you don't, you're more abnormal than the norm. And it's kind of funny, if you don't think that you suffer from PTSD, then I would suggest you buy some furniture from IKEA. And if you can make it through without yelling, getting angry, or cussing, then you're probably okay. But anyway, but in that case, I would pay a company for a nexus letter. Now, it's very important that the nexus letter is written correctly. So the VA, I'm getting ahead of myself. A nexus letter is basically a letter by a doctor that specializes in whatever let's say PTSD is. This would be a psychiatrist, for example, that specializes in post-traumatic stress disorder. And they go through and say, this is all the criteria that he has. This is what's going on with this individual. And it's more likely than not caused by this event in the military, in service. When they say more likely than not, that's what the VA wants to see. More likely than not. Basically, if it's a tie, the tie goes to the veteran, right? So you'll be awarded that claim. The VA is not going to go out there and say, if a doctor says that, does your nexus letter, they're not going to go against what the doctor says. So a nexus letter is, as long as it's well written, and if he cites different laws, different cases, that's a better word, different cases that the VA has filed against, or if he has, I think he has migraines because, I filed migraines secondary to tinnitus. There's so much information, I'm trying to process it quickly. Anyway, if you file, let's say, migraine secondary or sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. So let's say you have a rating for PTSD, and now you have sleep apnea as well, and you need a CPAP machine. So you file a claim with the VA secondary to PTSD for sleep apnea. Well, a nexus letter in this case would show this doctor would, not only would he say more likely than not, your sleep apnea is more likely than not caused by PTSD, he would show the studies, and he would quote the studies that are published in the medical world that connect PTSD to sleep apnea or sleep apnea to PTSD. So that's a well-written nexus letter. And in some cases, I would recommend that you pay that money up front to get because again, it's a service. Somebody's doing it for you. I would pay that money in certain circumstances to get that nexus letter to help make your claim go smoothly. It's almost like a golden ticket in some cases. But again, that's up to you. You go through it and you see what conditions, because every claim is different. Everybody's conditions are different, But then a lot of these companies online, I should caveat a little bit here. I'm not a VSO. I'm not a Veterans Service Officer. I don't work for the VA. The information that I'm giving you, I've obtained myself via open source through the VA. I just want you to be more educated as a veteran so that you can go out there and you can make smart claims. I'm not asking you to go and lie. I don't think that that's going to get you anywhere. I think that the series, number one, you have to go through and get a current diagnosis. So your doctor, you'd have to lie somehow and convince your doctor. Then you're going to get a CMP exam, which would be another different doctor that you would have to convince. To me, it's just craziness. So I'm not asking you to start frivolously submitting claims and hoping one grabs hold. I think that's very shaky ground, and I don't think you're going to do very well. But again, going back to nexus letters, if you pay for it, most likely the company is going to know what they're doing, and they're going to write you a strong letter versus, your primary care physician. You ask them, and they're kind enough to write you a nexus letter. They're not going to really know what the VA expects to see. So, paying for one, you're likely going to get a strong nexus letter versus not paying for one, you get the weak one, and I think the VA is going to want to see a strong one. And then with every single claim that you file, I want you to submit what they call a layperson or buddy statement. So it's basically going to be a statement that you write on behalf of yourself, right? I mean, you could go and reach out to buddies that you worked with that were in the military who served with you and said, you remember when, I hurt my shoulder jumping out that one jump that night and I wrenched my shoulder and now my shoulder's all messed up. You remember that? Could you do me a favor and put something together? I don't know. I'm not saying that they don't carry weight, but I don't think that the VA, at least in my experience, I don't think that the VA holds them at such a high standard. But your statement, how it's impacting you, I do think that they care about that. And I do think they want to know about that. If you ask your buddy Bob to write you a buddy statement that says, when George fell out of the plane, when he jumped and he landed wrong and he twisted his shoulder, I remember that, and he was laid up for about a week, okay. I mean, it's already going to be in your records. It's not really adding much content to your claim. But if you say, okay, because of the pain I'm in, I can't sleep at night. It affects my well-being. I'm not as mobile as I used to be. When I drive for long periods of time, my shoulders ache to where I can't go on long trips with my family. So now you're setting the stage yourself, like, hey, this is how it negatively affects me financially. I have to go and pay for physical therapy, or I have to buy medication, or whatever it may be. I can't at work. I can't lift heavy objects like I used to, and part of my job requires me to be able to do that. I'm not a valued team member as I once was. All of these things, that's what I would put in the lay statement. So socially and financially and professionally, how are they impacting you? Negatively impacting you. That's what the VA wants to know. So if you write a lay statement, that's what I want you to put in there. Don't just say, my arm hurts. It hurt then and it still hurts today. It's worse today. Okay. That's probably why you filed the claim to begin with. So that doesn't really add much to it, So make sure that when you do that, and there are some examples online, but make sure when you do that, that you focus on those, how it's negatively affecting you in these three areas, in all aspects of your life, right? And then the last thing we're going to talk about today is going to be the C&P. We talked briefly about that in the last video. You're going to be asked a bunch of questions. So these doctors are going to go, or whoever the specialist is, they're going to have a DBQ, which is, again, stands for disability-based questionnaire, in front of them. They're going to go through that disability-based questionnaire, and they're going to fill it in. So they're going to ask you questions. They're going to take measurements. They're going to do whatever it may be that you're being seen for. And then they're going to document your responses. So if you go in there with your shoulder pain and they say, well, how's your shoulder? Well, if today it feels pretty good, No. You need to tell them how your shoulder feels all the time on a bad day, not on a good day, right? You need to let them know, hey, this is bad and this is my movement. This is when it's bad, this is how it affects me, right? So anyway, don't downplay your symptoms. Don't go in there and be like, okay, I'm all right, I feel like this or I feel like that. No, but don't over exaggerate. Don't go in there, oh, I can barely breathe. I can do all this stuff. Be honest, but don't downplay your symptoms. Don't try to be macho. Be honest. It hurts. And this is when it hurts. And at this point, when I move it, I feel pain. Don't go, okay, I feel pain here. Well, if you feel pain here, you tell them that. Don't, now I can't. Well, your pain started here. So when they measure, you need to let them know that's when I feel pain. And that's what I mean. So please, when you do your C&P, I know a lot of people are apprehensive and they think, oh goodness, they're going to go in there and these guys don't believe me and their attitude or whatever, especially old people like us, we're just kind of aggravated with the world in general. These people are just like us. They got a job to do. Let them do their job. Be honest. Be forthright. This is what it is. You don't need to go into long discussions about, how I'm doing this and all of this. They're just filling out a form. Answer their questions. Be polite. They're going to be polite to you. Fill out the form. And that's all. So even with great evidence, many veterans still get underrated or even denied. In the next video, I'm going to show you what to do when that happens. Anyway, this is Old Man. Stay safe. Praying for you. I hope all is well with you. And I'll catch you in the next video.